Okay. At this time, Tom, are you ready to take over?
I am, Mark. Thanks for the good introduction. I feel kind of inadequate because I just have a blank white wall behind me, and you're sitting on the beach in Kauai. So what's the deal with that? So I appreciate the time today, and I look forward to sharing with you what made me a success in starting my real estate career, and what allowed me to help other agents who worked for me be a success. And it's kind of interesting. I fell into an office and a market where there was no training. I was basically put in a position where I needed to produce and find a way to produce myself. And fortunately, I came in touch with a couple of mentors like you have in Mark and Mel, who kind of pointed me in the right direction. And then I simply was young and crazy and just went for it. So I got started in a little beach town called Cambria in Central California. It's right on the ocean there. So it's a very desirable place to live. But there's only about 2,800, 3,000 people there. And most of the people who buy property there and who buy vacant land there for investment or future development, they're from Bakersfield and Fresno. They come over there to get out of the heat in the summer, or they come from LA. So in that town, there's like one main street that just goes down the center of town, and it's all retail shops, restaurants, and real estate offices. So when I got started there, it was interesting. I could see that what you call floor time or uptime was very important to the real estate agents in their production, because customers would basically walk in the door and want to talk about real estate. So it was like working in a retail clothing store. And during the summer, it was so active, you could have 4 sets of people walk in the office at the same time. So you had to have 4 agents available to rotate those people and either get them in a car or talk to them about a vacant lot or go show them a house or something like that. But when I got into real estate from being a school teacher after 5 years, the company was so tight with their relationships with the existing staff that I was not allowed to have any floor time. So I went to this guy that sat behind me, and he was seasoned, about 70 years old, been in the business for a long time, one of the top producers. And I said, well, how do I get any sales started if I don't have any floor time? And he shared the most valuable thing that anybody's ever shared with me. He says, in real estate, like any other sales activity, if you create your own inventory, and then he talked to me about the MLS service, the multiple listing service, people will start selling your inventory, and you don't need floor time. And from developing that inventory, you will get listings sold, and you'll create a pool of buyers. So I thought, well, okay, remember, this is before computers. This is before emails, any of that stuff. This is 1981. So we did all of our business over the phone or face-to-face. Because most of these property owners and buyers were from out of the area, 90% of my business was over the phone or writing letters. And so what I did is, and in this particular town, it was subdivided way back in the 1930s, and a lot of people own these vacant lots. They either inherited them, they bought them for investment to hold. A lot of people, when I called them, they didn't even remember that they owned a lot. So it was a fascinating process. So what I did, though, because I didn't have any floor time, when I would go into the office, we had these card catalogs that had all the people's addresses, phone numbers, and lot descriptions. I would sit down, I would establish an estimate of value. I would do a quick analysis of the comparative sales there, just like you do when you do a listing presentation. So I would know what to say when I called them, and it was real simple. I didn't know what to do, so I just called these people up and I said, hey, my name's Tom Koon. I work for Pine de Rosa Realty in Cambria. I noticed you own these lots. Are you interested in selling them? Real simple presentation. Now, some people may say, you know, I can't talk to you now, and they'll hang up, and that's okay. Maybe I'll call you back later, maybe not. Most of the people appreciated the call because they wanted to talk to somebody about their investment. They wanted to either talk to me about what it was worth. They wanted to, maybe I reminded them that they even own the lots. And then once I established a value for them, do they want to sell it? And then in those days, interest rates were 20% interest at the bank. In fact, I built my first 2 houses at 20% interest, one to live in and one to spec. And so you couldn't get bank financing for these lots. You couldn't get bank financing for homes. So everybody was either seller financing, exchanging, or wraparound loans, which I won't even get into. But it was the only way you could move a piece of property. So these people typically, let's say they had a $50,000 lot, they could take 20%, they own it free and clear, they take 20% down, 10% would cover their sales costs, then they could put 10% in their pocket, and they would carry the paper on a promissory note secured by a deed of trust at, you know, typically it was 10 to 12% interest. So the buyer would start paying them monthly payments. A lot of times it was interest only with a balloon payment, 3 or 5 years. A lot of times the people didn't even care about having a balloon payment. So anyway, to cut to the quick, within about, after making these calls and sending these letters out to these people, within about 6 months, I had real estate signs with my name on them all over the town. And so then what happens is they start selling, they start getting into escrow. So within 12 months, I had to quit my teaching job because I couldn't do both. My principal would come into my office and hand me a note, and she goes, you know, I know you're in class here, but you need, on your break, you need to call Safeco Title Company because they have a question on your transaction. So she finally set me down about halfway through the school year, and she goes, and her husband was a realtor because half the people in the town were realtors, and she goes, I appreciate the fact that you're having success, but you need to make a decision. Are you going to teach next year, or are you going to go for this career? And she goes, I think you're going to go for this career. Because, you know, I was making as a school teacher, I think a whopping 20,000 gross a year. So my net was maybe 15,000, and it's kind of hard to live on $15,000. So anyway, what happened is through those listing activities, and again, I'm not having floor time, I started selling those lots. I started creating a buyer pool. It just, activity begets activity. Pretty soon, when your name's all over the place in a particular neighborhood, you've got people that own homes now calling you going, hey, I see you have success, Tom. Would you come and look at my house? I'm thinking about selling it. So I had people calling me to come and make a presentation on what I could do to sell their house. So it just exploded very rapidly. But if that guy hadn't told me that I didn't need uptime, that all I needed to do was create my own store, I wouldn't have known what to do. So I'm going to go through some numbers here that I researched yesterday. And this is fascinating because these numbers do not change. I'm going to share with you some numbers that I got from the National Association of Realtors. By the way, you guys are probably aware that through your association with the Arizona Association of Realtors, you are also a member of the National Association of Realtors. It's the strongest lobbying group in the United States, protecting your ability to make a living, protecting property rights, but they also have statistics that you can look up. Just Google National Association of Realtors sales stats for 2020. So, and this is going to shock you, and it doesn't matter if you're a new realtor or a seasoned realtor, but the average number of units sold nationally per realtor is only 4 units. Okay, that's kind of a scary statistic. And nationally last year, there were 5,340,000 existing homes that sold. There were 682,000 new construction homes that sold. So that's 6,022,000 total units. Okay. Now, nationally in 2020, there were 1,451,031 real estate agents. Okay. So if you take that 6,022,000 divided by 1,451,031 number of agents, that's only 4.15 units sold per agent. Okay, and that's an average. So that's kind of scary, because if you take the national average sales price, it was interesting. The national average was about 250,000. And so let's say you were getting a 3% commission. Let's talk just sides, whether it be listing side, times the 4.15 units. That's only $31,125 dollars per agent per year. So that may be enough money for some people. Probably not enough for you. It wouldn't get me real excited, because that's about as much money as I'd be making today back if I was a first-year school teacher. Now, it's interesting, the Arizona average sales price this last year is a little bit higher. So it's $283,623. So if you take that times your a 3%, that would be 8,490 per transaction is your Arizona average. Now in 2020, the average per realtor was higher than that national average, because you guys are in a really good market. I don't know if you realize you are in a really good place. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2021 forecast and into 2022, because I was able to just attend an economic forecast presentation by US Bank, and the numbers still look really good for you. But your average earnings per agent in 2020 was $73,849. And again, you can get those figures at the National Association of Realtors. You can also research them on the Arizona Association of Realtors. So the question is, and this is a perfect time for you to be talking about these numbers, because you should be developing your business plan for 2021. It should already be written. You should already be planning on the activities that you're going to participate in order to realize those numbers. And if you're not doing that, you're behind the game, because remember, the activities that you do today as a realtor become a commission payout for you in 60, 90, 120 days down the road. Okay. So you have to ask yourself, if I do these activities now, if I start now, I can start creating that listing activity, that sales activity right in January, February. And since you have 30-day escrows, you're putting checks in your pocket, by February. Now, if I could digress a little bit into this forecast, this is interesting. Maricopa County, and you've probably seen this, is the number 1 and 2 county in the United States for people coming in. They're coming in from California because they're tired of the politics. They're tired of the cost of living. They've always come from Ohio, Minnesota, Kansas, and they keep coming. And we have an imbalance of buyers compared to inventory. And we've had it really, but after the crash in 09, the market started picking up in 2012. And so between 2012 and right now, you have so many more buyers coming here than you have inventory. And that's what's creating these, 3-day market times. Your average market time right now is 30 days or less in Arizona. And most of you, or if you're watching Mark and Mel, they list a home and it's gone the first weekend. So that's going to continue through 2021. After the first quarter of 2021, you're going to see an interest rate increase. And it's interesting because the forecast, it's not like catastrophic. You're not going to see it jump up to even 6%. The first year, because right now I'm closing a loan today for a veteran. It's 2.5% on a 30-year fix with with a lender credit. I'm closing a $1.8 million loan this week for a guy, 30-year fix, 2.875 with a lender credit. So it's crazy what's going on right now. But you're going to see those rates go up probably about, into the low mid threes by the end of, who's that? Hi. By the end of 2021, you're going to see them maybe creep up to the high threes, but it's nothing catastrophic. Remember, anything lower than 6% interest is a fantastic interest rate historically. But what that will do, whenever you increase interest rates, it eliminates or reduces the buying power for your buyers, okay? And it also makes them think, oh, well, maybe I missed my chance. I'm not going to buy now. So all of this, goes through a buyer's thinking. The other thing is the sellers think, well, should I list now? Should I wait? Are the interest rates going to come back down? They're not going to come back down. Once they start going up, you're not going to see them come back down. You will never see, I don't think you will ever see this 2.5% interest activity again. So what that will do, though, it's going to create a more balanced market, because right now it's way in the seller side and it's very difficult for your buyers. As you know, if you've got a buyer in that 250,000 to 300 range, they have to run around and make 5 offers at full price and they maybe still don't get the home. And so when you have more inventory, when there's more competition for that seller, that can change. So, but you still, in our forecast, they said for Arizona, there are so many more people coming than there is inventory. You're still going to have a solid market, so maybe instead of a 3-day listing time period, you might have 2 weeks to 30 days. Still, the national average historically, if you were to go back and look at the last 40 years I've been in the business, the average market time is 90 to 120 days. So this, 30 days or less that we're experiencing, it's a unique market. So let's talk about you and your numbers. Because if you ask any salesperson, and it doesn't matter if they're selling gold coins, cars, or if they're a stockbroker, if you ask them, what are your numbers? They're going to know exactly what you're talking about, because they're going to know how much they make per transaction. They're going to know how many leads they need to generate in order to turn that into a transaction. And they need to know, they know exactly how many calls they need to make or mailings they need to do in order to create those leads. And that's what you need to do for yourselves. So let's take some simple numbers. And again, I would like you to take some notes because these numbers are real. So let's just take $100,000 and analyze that. Now, I know some of you are new agents, some of you may be seasoned agents, but I'm just picking $100,000 because Arizona's average last year was 73,000. That was just average. So analyzing 100,000 is a pretty easy number. And it's not a bad living, $100,000. You may not want to make more than $100,000, but I just want to use that as a base for you to evaluate your numbers. So if your average commission on your average sales price is $8,490 in Arizona last year, you take your 100,000 divided by 8,490, that equals 11.7 units per year. So in other words, to make $100,000 in Arizona in your average market, you need to close just shy of 12 units. That's 1 unit per month, correct? And that may sound like a lot to you. To me, it's a minimal standard, okay? So it just depends on what your personal goals are. Now, for every saleable listing you get, you're going to get, and these are real numbers. If you analyze it, they're the last 40 years. For every saleable listing that you get, you're going to get 1.5 units. And when you go, well, where's that 1.5 come from? Well, you're going to sell that listing because you priced it right. And you're going to get some buyer calls. So that's what averages out to about 1.5 units per listing that you get. So if you want to do 12 units per year, divided by that 1.5, you really only need to get, to make 100,000, you only need to get 8 listings per year. Now, take that 8 listings divided by 12, that's 0.67 listings per month, all right? So let's just use some round numbers. If you want to make more than $100,000 a year in this business, if you got at least 1 saleable listing per month, you're probably going to be about at $125,000, $130,000 for the year, okay? Now, then you have to say, what kind of activities do I need to generate in order to allow me to have 1 listing per month? Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so that's why I'm drinking the water a lot. Now, one thing that I told you that I did is, because I didn't have any floor time, when I wanted to get listings, I prospected. You've probably heard that word before. So how did I prospect? Well, the only thing we had in those days was phone call, write a letter. And you guys are going to laugh at the letter that I used to generate. So I typed out a letter and it said, hi, and I would write my name in. Hi, my name's Tom Koon. I work for Ponderosa Realty. I see you own these lots. And I would write the legal description in. And then I had a little perforated dotted line at the bottom. And I had 3 boxes there. And I said, check the box that applies to you. And then I would say, I'm interested in the market value of my property. Next box, it says, I would like to sell my property. And then I had another box that said, do I want cash or will I finance? And I would include a self-addressed postage paid envelope, because we had a bulk, postal machine. And that's the one thing that my broker allowed me to do with that expense. And I would mail 30 letters a day. Out of 30 letters a day, I got 3 back. sometimes I get 5 back. Out of those 5, I get probably at least 3 people that wanted to sell. So out of 30 letters, I'd get 3 listings. Okay. And then once I saw that return on the investment, I just started calling these people, started mailing letters. That's all I did is mail letters. And it created that listing activity. Now, you're in a different marketplace. So you have to establish your particular goals of how are you going to get those listings. Now I'm going to get back to some national statistics that you need to hear. And this is again coming from the National Association of Realtors. They surveyed top producers, and listen to this. 47% of their business leads came from social media. That was the #1 source nationally. So if you are not on social media, you need to talk to the social media queen, Mel, and the king, Mark. I call her the queen because it seems like she's the one that generates all this stuff. And I got to tell you, if anybody's thinking about a house or a realtor in Glendale, in Chandler, Mesa, Gilbert, excuse me, they think of the Mark and Mel team because she's all over the place. So I'm not going to get into that, the nuts and bolts of social media. That's another presentation. And really, I would work with Mark and Mel to get that going for yourself. If all these realtors throughout the United States, it's almost half of their business leads, you better be doing it now. You better be setting up those business pages. You better be posting listings. And again, if you're a rookie and you don't have any listings, find somebody's listings to share on your media post. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mark and Mel, but would you mind if any of your associates shared your listing on their social media? That's
not only do we not mind, it's just become a regular practice among this group of people. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I'm starting to put it in our page so that anybody can share.
Right. You new people, you don't have any listings yet. But the consumer out there doesn't know that. They don't know how many years of experience you have. If you create a nice web page and put some listings on it, post, they don't have to be your listings. Just look at one of your associates that's a top producer in the office. Same thing with open houses. They don't have time to sit open houses. Get on an open house, get your face out there. Before you do that open house, get some flyers for that particular listing, walk the neighborhood and say, hey, we got this listing down the street. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. It's on the market for $350,000. And here's a flyer on it. And so let me ask you a question. When do you plan on moving? You know, and you may think, well, that's a crazy question to ask. If you don't ask a question, you're never going to get a lead. So there's all these activities that you can do to create that listing activity. Now, back to the numbers. 52% of the national sales came from the internet, and 29% came from another agent. So that would be through the multiple listing service. Now, relative to creating your listing inventory, how many people do you have to make a listing presentation to in order to get a listing? Now, some people's numbers are higher than others. If you're a really seasoned agent, you may have 100% success rate. In other words, I go on a listing presentation, I walk away with a listing. The real numbers show about 50%. So for every 2 appointments you go on, actual listing presentations, you're going to walk away with at least 1 listing, maybe more. So back to your numbers. If I want to have 1 listing per month is my minimum goal, I only have to make at least 2 listing presentations per month. And when I see those numbers, that's such a minimal requirement. And so then you have to establish, what activities am I going to do in order to get that listing appointment? Now, I'm going to stop right there because I want to open it up to questions and feedback. And you know, Mark and Mel have certain activities that they do that have created success for them. I can talk to you about other agents that I work with, because I have relationships with agents from Flagstaff to Payson to Whitman on the west side, down in your area. I live up in the Northeast Valley, so I work a lot of this Paradise Valley area, Cape Creek, Carefree. But all of the successful real estate agents do the same thing. They prospect for listings. They make listing presentations. From those listings in the MLS, posting them on social media, they get at least 1.5 transactions per listing. And they make much more than that minimum standard that I'm saying of $100,000. So what I'd like to do is stop right there, and because I know I've given you a lot of information, I've gone through a lot of numbers. I want to see if I can answer any questions relative to what I talked about. And I offered to Mark and Mel, if you're interested in getting into the nuts and bolts of what activities you need to generate in order to get those listing appointments, we can do some one-on-one training sessions. Later, we can set them up. And the things that we would be talking about is cold calling, door knocking, working the expireds and cancels, working the for sales by owners, working the just listed, just sold activities in particular neighborhood, because those are the activities that you can do to create a listing appointment. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right there, Mark and Mel, and open it up to questions or feedback that you may have, and see what your people think.
Thanks so much, Tom. Nobody's put any questions in the chat. I've been chatting up some of the stuff that I really hit home for me in the chat. And I was sending it all to Rich only at the beginning for some reason, so everybody should see it. Just some comments on your comments. But as everybody gets ready to maybe ask some questions, one thing I wanted to point out, and this is not news to anybody in this group, the one thread of what Tom was saying that really hit home for me is, in a nutshell, he's saying, do something every day. It doesn't matter really what that is, as long as it's a proven method of obtaining leads, but do something every day. And that's the key. You've got to be doing something if you're going to get more business in this industry. So
I have a question really quick, just one, because it could go on and on, because Tom, you're really good at overcoming objections. And I remember in the beginning when I was going to get my license, you were like, that's awesome. Just, read Tom Ferry's scripts and, do open houses, knock on doors as much as you can. And that's the way, as soon as I got my license, I said, Mark, I got to hold that condo open before it sells. And I did. And that's where I got my first listing. And it was the summertime. And I walked that neighborhood and I walked 30 homes and I got another listing. I was sweating, but I was going to do it because I think it's so important to do all this activity in the beginning. And I was like, I'm not going to fail. Dang it, I'm going to go do this. Right. And then I just maximized on every opportunity to show on social media, which, it's scary. I don't like it. I don't like doing video. I don't like doing live. It sucks. I'd rather have a pretty filter on. but things are going more real right now, and I can see it all over. And I mean, you know, my Instagram's growing the more real I am, actually. So I've got to just push, and that's my next thing, is to do video.
Right. So, you know, back to creating activities for yourself. If you talk to top producing realtors, I'm going to use a guy for an example up in my area. You've seen his radio advertising. You've seen his television ads. He sends out a newspaper every, I think it's every week I get it. Maybe it's once a month. His name's Russell Shaw. And he's kind of a nerdy little guy. I've met him before, but he does nothing but make listing presentations. He never shows property. He's got 6 buyer's agents that work for him. He sits in an office and he makes listing presentations a minimum of 4 to 5 hours a day. He never comes to your house. You have to go to his office to get the pitch. And if you say, well, you have to come to my house, and he goes, well, I'm not your guy. He's that strong. And because they know that he's got a system set up, that he has proven success, that he's going to sell their house in a shorter period of time. He doesn't take overpriced listings, but he's got that network set up. Now, here's a guy making over $1 million a year, because you know that's how much he makes, well over $1 million a year. And he still prospects a minimum of 3 to 4 hours a day. He does it through calling. He does it through mailings. He does it through radio advertising. He does it through TV, because, you know, he's got the budget for all that stuff. You don't have the budget for all that stuff. So what you have to say is, okay, it doesn't cost me anything to go knock on somebody's door. Now, that's a scary thing, knocking on somebody's door. But I discovered, and I shared this with Mark and Mel, when I moved from California, I sold my brokerage out there in 1995, and I came out here, and I had, you know, my wife and 3 daughters. I settled up in the Cave Creek area, and I said, well, you know, I had some cash in the freezer, cash in the bank, because I sold my business and properties and stuff. But I said, you know, I need to get to work, and I knew what to do because I had trained my agents to do that. So the best thing that I could do is get face to face with a seller. All right. So I picked an area, and it was in the days where we had these maps, because it was right before the computer was coming out. And there was this area up here, I think they call it section 403. It went from Bell Road to the north down to Shea, 40th Street over to Scottsdale Road. And I looked in there and I went, wow, the average market time is 3 days. The people come there because they like the neighborhoods, they like the school districts. It was a good spot. So I said, well, that's the area I'm going to go work in today. And I simply went down and started knocking on doors in a neighborhood. And I would bang on the door and I would just say, hi, my name's Tom Koon. I work for Coldwell Banker Brothers Realty. We just listed and sold a house down the street, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. So my question is, when do you plan on moving? Well, now they may slam the door in my face. That's okay. I go knock on the next door. They may talk to me and they say, well, I wasn't planning on moving. Oh, and I'd say, well, that's fantastic. Well, if you were to move, where would you move next? Well, you know, my husband and I were talking about maybe getting a house with a pool, and we're kind of weighing that. Should we build a pool, or should we just sell our house and go buy a house with a pool? And then my next question will be, well, if you want that house with the pool, my question is, do you want it in the next 30 days or 6 months, or do you want the pool in a year? And she goes, well, if we were to sell, you know, summer's coming up, I'd like the pool like as soon as possible. Well, I said, well, that's fantastic. You know, it takes 3 to 6 months in order to prep your house, get it on the market and get it sold. So my question is, Do you want to be in the house with the pool in 30 days, or do you want to be in there in 6 months? Well, I'd rather be in there sooner than later. Well, all we have to do is set an appointment so I can help you get what you want when you want. Won't that be great? Well, yeah. And I go, well, I got some time this afternoon. I got 4 or 6 available. Which is better for you? I can sit down with you and your husband. Well, we have dinner about 6. Can you come over at 6:30? Absolutely. Let me go prepare my listing presentation. I'll be back to your house at 6:30. So day 1, I go down to this neighborhood south of Bell. I'm banging on doors, and you can bang on 30 doors in an hour because I do it. And I did it in the rain. I did it in the heat, and I would do it from 9 to 12. Okay. Because I could find people there. And so I bang on these doors, and in the first hour, I bang on the door, and the guy goes, "How did you know I wanted to sell my house?" And I said, "Well, I didn't know, but I'm working in your area. We just sold a house down the street, and statistically, every time a house sells in a neighborhood, within 30 days, within a 3-block radius, another house comes on the market and sells. That's a nationwide statistic. So what does that tell you? That's why you need to be out there working that activity." So he says, "Well, I'm trying to buy this piece of property up here to put a nursery in. I'm in the landscaping business, and I need this house sold immediately." And so I go, "Well, let's talk." I walk in there, his wife's sitting there, the kids are running around, beautifully landscaped, single level house, one of those slump block homes, built in the 1985 up here. And I said, "Well, this is what the house is going to sell for." I said, "We could list it at 175, but it's going to sell quick. I can guarantee you I can sell this house. If you put it at 165,000, I'll sell this house this week." And so I didn't even have any of my personalized real estate signs developed yet because I was just out day 1. So I said, "We're going to do an open house Saturday. I'm going to do an open house Sunday." And I wrote on some signs, "House for sale." I mean, just in a black marker. and I put them on the corners around, like, Bell and Scottsdale, Bell and 40th Street, over here on Tatum. And I set that open house. A couple comes in because it's in a desirable area. It was beautifully landscaped. They owned a smaller home north of Bell, and it was in a little PUD, and they were looking for a house with a yard. And they walked in, they go, "We just love this house," and my seller was there, and I said, "You need to go for a walk because I need to talk to these people." So I asked my seller to leave. I sat down and I said, "Well, this is a beautiful home. You need to write the contract." Now, if you notice, I'm using some assertive language. It's not like, you don't need to be shy about asking for the order. You don't need to be shy about asking questions. I got out a purchase contract. I put it on the table. And I said, "My recommendation is 30-day escrow, 165,000 or more, and I'll make the presentation." And they go, "Well, we haven't sold our house yet." And I said, "Well," I said, "Where's your house?" And they said, "Well, it's up here just north of Bell. Can you come and look at it?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I said, do you have money in your 401k that you could pull out?" Because they were both working people. And they go, "Yeah, we have the cash." So I said, "Well, then we don't need to make the offer contingent upon the sale of that because they're not going to take it. He needs to buy this property for his nursery, so I cannot have a contingent sell." So they said, "Okay, do that." So I tied up the contract. I didn't, and then I went up and listed their house, did an open house the next weekend, sold their house. So one day, day 1, first hour, 2 listings, 2 sales. And so, naturally, I continued that activity. So when I was working for Coldwell Banker and when I was working in Canberra, I would train my agents. My recommendation is you prospect a minimum of 3 hours a day. So when I worked up in Carefree, I would prospect. I would go to the gym every morning because you need to do that stuff too. I would take my kids to school. I'd be in the office. I'd start calling from 9 to 11:30, and then I would break for lunch. And who did I call? I would call the expireds and canceled listings first, because they're people that already want to sell, but they failed. And the reason they failed is it probably was overpriced, or they didn't stage it right, or something like that. That's your highest return on a phone call or a door knock, is talking to somebody that already listed their home but failed. I would also call the for sale by owners. And, you know, again, we can down the road, we can get into pitches. You know, what do you say to a sale by owner? Well, you know, the national statistics are that within the 30 days of for sale by owner will list their property. And why is that? Because they're getting inundated with calls from realtors trying to list their property, and they hate it. They hate showing the property. They don't know how to advertise it. Maybe they overpriced it, maybe they didn't. Also, national statistic, for sale by owners get 25% more in a sales price than if they do it themselves, if they work with a realtor. National statistic. So you make that part of your presentation when you go call that for sale by owner, and they can be rude. I don't need you. I'm not going to pay you that 6% commission. Well, that's okay. But let me talk to you about what the numbers are. And you don't have to listen to me, but just, you know, sit down with me and let me talk to you. And, you know, you might even say to him, hey, if I bring you a buyer, would you pay me a 3% commission? You know, so you get some rapport going. But for sale by owners already want to sell. So you got a captive person that already wants to sell. So just try to get in front of them. And then the just listed and just solds. So remember what I was telling you, that when a property is listed and sold, and this is a nationwide statistic, within 30 days, within a 3-block radius, another property will be listed and sold. So what does that tell you to do? If I was a rookie agent and I didn't have any listings, I would go to Mark and Mel and I go, can I get a flyer on your listing? I want to sit an open house this coming Saturday, and I'm going to canvass the neighborhood. And you go knock on the door, and, you know, I work, you know, for EXP. We listed the house down the street. Here's a flyer on it, and don't want to take up too much of your time. But, you know, let me ask you a question. When do you plan on moving? Real simple. Well, they may be shocked. They may go, you know, I don't have time to talk to you, and they'll shut the door. That's okay. I knock on the next door. Hey, I work with Mark and Mel's team at EXP Realty. We listed the house down the street. Here's a flyer on it. So let me ask you, when do you plan on moving? You just get the dialogue going. And you want to be the person that talks to that one person in that 3-block radius and gets in front of them, because they see that activity and they want to sell their property. But if you noticed, you new people, I'm talking about a bunch of activities. And if you are not doing these activities every day, you are not putting yourself in a position to be a success. And this is down the road. Once you become successful like Mark and Mel, the biggest thing that you could do that's wrong is stop those activities. Because what happens is, and Mark and Mel will tell you this, you get so busy, you're managing escrows, you're showing properties, you're developing flyers, you're doing social media. Do you stop prospecting? Because remember, the activities you do today create a paycheck 30, 60, 90 days down the road. So a lot of realtors, even after they become successful, they go through what we call the roller coaster. And what that is they create all these activities, they create escrows, they start feeling good about their commissions coming in, and they stop doing the activities that created the listing appointments, that created the showings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you, again, back to Russell Shaw, if you went and interviewed him And he said, what's your daily schedule? He goes, well, I go to the office, I prospect from, 9 to 11 in the morning. I call people, I do my follow-ups, I have lunch, I make listing presentations in my office from 1 to 4, and then I'm done. He does that every day, 5 days a week. And then he has other people going out and showing his property. So I'm not saying you have to be like Russell Shaw. I'm just saying you have to do something, because the phone's not going to ring on its own. Nobody's going to call you up and say, hey, I heard about you. I know you're new, but I want to list my house with you. It's not going to happen. You need to create some activities that are going to put you in front of a property owner so you can get an appointment and make a listing presentation. So I've probably, talked overboard. I want to be quiet now, see if I can answer any questions. We can do some follow-up training sessions and talk about scripts and dialogues that you can create for yourself in order to make a presentation. So I'm going to end right there, Mark, and just, let me know if you have any additional questions.
Thanks a bunch, Tom. Anybody have any specific questions for Tom? I might have muted everybody. I don't know if I have that power or not.
Yeah, mine says you have everybody muted.
I don't know if I did that. Somebody try to unmute themselves and talk just for fun, just so I know I'm not doing it.
Hello.
Hi. We're
Okay,
here.
fantastic.
I think the way you give two options, I picked up on that right away when you first told me, and I started utilizing that.
Yeah.
I don't do it all the time. Just like the roller coaster, totally experience that.
Right.
Like you think it's just going to keep coming in. But we're back to doing that again. I can't wait to pick another farm so that I can start prospecting door to door again.
Right. Yeah. Do that today. Yeah.
It's a great season to do it. More people are here. I can't wait to do it. But
Right.
I think the key to making it really simple is those options you get, those two options. And I would love to go. I don't know. Would anybody else love to go through a script session with Tom on how?
I would.
Jenna would. Janet would. Yeah, Michelle would. I think that would be super helpful because it rolls off your tongue now, but it wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't in the beginning. And
no, I had to learn it. I used to, in the beginning, and you can get scripts and dialogues from Mike Fair. You can get them wherever. It's not complicated, but you just need to do it. And it is, the main thing you want to do is get the conversation going. If you notice, I asked them what they call leading questions. So when do you plan on moving? Well, I don't. Well, if you were to move, where would you go next? So they're leading questions. It's not a yes or no answer. It's just getting them talking. And what you'll find is if you can get them talking, you can find out what their motivation is. They may want to, I've had people, bang on the door. I was telling Mel, I was doing it one summer and it was monsoon and I always wore a coat and tie and I had my umbrella. It's raining like heck, but I still had to get my numbers in. I door knocked from 9 to 12 and I went to this PUD south of Bell over just west of Scottsdale and I banged on this guy's door and this guy really appreciated it because he was a salesperson. And I'm standing there in the rain and I got my briefcase with me and I do my just sold pitch and he just laughed at me and he goes, "You crazy sucker." He grabs me by the collar, "Get in here." And he goes, "Sit down." He goes, "You do this every day?" And I go, "Absolutely, from 9 to 11:30. And he goes, "Well, I really appreciate that. And we want to sell our house here and I need to sell it quickly. So let's talk." I sat down, did my market analysis right on the spot because I knew the market there. I signed him up, did an open house the next weekend, double into the deal. So that's the dream story. That doesn't happen every time. Because remember, I knocked on 30 doors in an hour and I only talked to 3 people. These are the stats. You knock on 30 doors, you get 3 people face to face. Out of 3 people, I could get 1 to 2 people talking to me. Out of those, out of that, 3.5 period, I'd get anywhere from 3 to 5 leads where I could actually go visit them in their home and make a listing presentation. Now that may convert to a sale. Remember, I only gave myself a 50-50 chance once I made that listing presentation. And so again, it's just getting out there and doing it. I'd be happy to share with you, some scripts and dialogues, some methods that I use with my agents that made them successful. But again, I don't know if you guys have a form that you guys use. You don't need a form. All you need to do is know your numbers. And
Tom, one of our most successful mentors here in our group, Jeff Sutherland, I think he's not here today. That's why we're handling the meeting. But he's already actually done this with, I think, everybody in this group, right? Next year's business plan and the numbers. I was out of town that week. Did Jeff do that, guys? Yeah, everybody's nodding. So that's actually taken place on, on paper, so to speak. And Jeff handled that. One thing I'd like to add is, Tom's talking about Russell Shaw doing this thing every single day. Okay. Might I say that, you know what? You don't have to do it every single day. You could get that 100,000 GCI number doing these prospecting activities literally 2 to 3 days a week. If you really did it and put in the 2 or 3 hours or whatever time, just 2 or 3 days a week, you could get there. Now, Russell Shaw does well over 2 million, by the way. I heard that directly from him recently. I think he said 2.4 million last year.
Yeah.
But he also spends $800,000 a year in marketing.
Yeah.
Just a little side note.
Yeah.
The actual amount of time and effort to be successful in this business, to get, using that elusive 100,000 GCI, is not that difficult. I mean, it's not even as much time as Tom yourself were saying that you did, that you were reaching that elusive $100,000 back when $100,000 was probably worth more like $250,000 or more, I would say as well. So we've hit just over an hour. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Very quiet group today.
That's all right.
Well, somebody asked, Brenda said, Tom, what is your title? What at US Bank? What?
I'm just a mortgage loan officer. At my station in life, I don't want to be in management. I have a unique relationship with US Bank because I know the guys who run the Kierland branch and the guy who's the head of the all of Arizona, Nevada division. I worked with at another company, Great Southwest, for 10 years. So when they recruited me and I went to work for them, I said, I don't want to go into the bank and wear a tie and deal with customers. I already got my client base, my referral base. I want to work from my home and just I'll bring in the deals and here's my commission request, and so that's the relationship I have. So I'm just a mortgage loan officer. I love what I'm doing, and I love working with real estate agents because you're my number one source of business. And so the best thing I can do is develop relationships with more realtors, help you grow your business. That helps me in turn grow my business because I can help you with your buyers. So this is what I love to do. And I'm just a mortgage loan officer.
Yeah, but you know what? He's so dependable. I mean, he's just really been there when we had buyers that all of a sudden came out of the woodwork and we got to get them qualified. And Tom is right there. I mean, and he's
one thing. I'm sorry, Mel. Thought you were done.
Yeah.
No, one thing about Tom, just as a plug to Tom, he's participated with us a lot in our marketing. He's a great resource for marketing. Okay, everybody's frozen on my screen. Does anybody hear me? Okay, it came
No.
back. We completely lost our internet the other day here at our house and lost the whole meeting. But anyway, another thing Tom has done for us with multiple buyers, he's taken, and I think in every case, a first-time home buyer that wasn't sure if they wanted to or could buy, and help them improve their credit. Work with them for months to get their credit to the point where they could buy, and in a couple of cases, help them get into what's the term for it, Tom? Down payment assistance programs and that sort of thing. Tom is very good at that. So keep him in mind. Tom, I put all your contact information in the chat, so everybody in the meeting does have that. And we'll talk further about doing a future meeting where Tom can share some of those scripts and things like that, because a lot of people in chat suggested that they'd like to participate in that. So,
Mark?
Yes,
Can
Kelly.
I just ask one thing from Tom? Sorry, I sound horrible. Our family has COVID. It's been really awesome.
Sorry.
But I have heard from someone that if we are looking at offers, when they see the bigger banks, US Bank, some of these, that they steer away from them because it takes longer, or, I mean, can you kind of debunk that for me?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. And because the big banks do have a negative reputation, and we are a pretty big bank. We're the fifth largest bank. We're an international bank, but we're the fifth largest bank in the United States. But our real estate department, we prioritize our purchase loans. Now, our refinance loans, and we tell our people right up front, it's going to take you 60 days. And the reason it's going to take you 60 days is we prioritize our purchases. Not everybody does that. Chase doesn't, Wells Fargo doesn't. I bank with Wells Fargo personally, but I wouldn't do an auto loan with them, let alone a home mortgage. You know, they take 120 days. If you call me up or text me and say, I need a pre-qual, I don't care if I'm in the swimming pool or wherever I'm at. I could be up in, I could be in Mexico. I go down to Rocky Point and we camp and stuff, and I still have my computer with me and my hotspot. I was doing business down there. And if you need a pre-qual, I'll get with your customers, pull credit. We don't charge anything up front, no obligation. I'll have a pre-qual to you within an hour. I run the automated loan approval. I can tell you now, purchases, 30 days, no problem. You know, if you want shorter than that in today's market, because it's so busy, don't put yourself in a position where you have to do a 2-week escrow, because that's not a realistic thing. But I can do a 30-day escrow. So not all big banks are that way. Like I said, if you're working with Chase, if you're working with Bank of America, if you're working with Wells Fargo, it's a different story. But the guys who are running our real estate, our mortgage division, they're all from other companies that focus on realtor relationships. And nationwide, our average close time is 30 days or less on a purchase.
Hey, I have a question too, and about the paperwork, and because I'm just becoming more assertive as a newer agent. Mark is pretty assertive. You know, I don't waste time with buyers now if they don't get with my lender or a lender, or if they don't prove to me they can do this. You know, right. I make sure that they understand how important it is to be pre-qualified and what kind of contingencies are we going to deal with if you really want to buy a property.
Right.
But becoming more assertive is kind of harder for newer agents in trying to get paperwork or things that you need in a timely manner. And so to be able to go over that a little bit in the next time when we go through scripts on how to nicely make sure your buyer understands the importance of getting documentation in a timely manner.
Right.
if they want to close on time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's where I as a loan officer can help take some of that heat off you. Is the main thing in your presentation is if we find the property that you like, if you really are out looking at property, you have to be in a position to make an offer, and you have to be, and the listing agent will not even present your offer without a pre-qualification. So you need to call this guy Tom. He's going to take you through that process. He's not going to charge you any money to do it. He is going to pull credit because it says right on that pre-qual that you've done a tri-merge credit report. And that's where, when you get me in front of them, if I ask a person, what's your social security number? What's your date of birth? If they hesitate, or if they say, well, why do you need that? And I say, well, in order to pre-qual you, I need to look at your credit and income and assets. It says right on there, I've looked at that stuff. So you need to put yourself in a position where you can have a competing offer, or you're wasting your time. So when I go through that, they go, okay, I understand. So I even qualified a guy yesterday, and this is after, unfortunately, he's already written the offer, and he's a big broker in Orange County. He's a nice guy. He actually went to Whittier College, Melissa. And when I asked him for his social security number, he goes, well, are you going to do a full pull? I go, yeah, absolutely. It says right on there, tri-merge credit report. And he's also self-employed. And I said, you need to get me your tax returns ASAP, because, naturally he's saying, oh, I make, I do have all these properties and I do all this. But hey, as a lender, I don't know what's going on until I see your tax returns and do my cash flow analysis, because he may not qualify. I don't know. So he's already made an offer on a Sedona property. I'm doing a $640,000 loan. And as I'm doing this presentation, he's emailing me his tax returns that I asked for yesterday. So you really want to do that stuff before you make an offer. You really want to do that stuff before you get your buyers in the car. Because what if they aren't qualified? You get them all excited about a property they can't afford. That's the worst thing that you can do. You get a buyer, negotiate a contract, and I'll say, oh, you can't afford that. You don't make enough money, or you don't have enough down payment, et cetera. So it doesn't take a long time. So that's where your loan officer, whether you're working with me or somebody else, you need to get that done before you even send them a bunch of listings to look at, because you don't want to get them excited about making an offer unless they're in a position to make an offer.
Hey, Tom, thank
Yep.
you so much. We're
Yep.
almost 20 minutes over right now.
Okay.
So I think we should wrap it up. You guys all have Tom's contact info if you'd like to contact him with any questions, and we'll work on maybe doing a script session with Tom in the future. Sound good?
Absolutely. You guys have a good day.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Everybody else have a great day. Thanks.
Bye.